Hello, I'm John DiJulius, Chief Revolution Officer of the DiJulius Group. The DiJulius Group works with some of the top brands all over the globe who want to make the experience they deliver to both their employees and their customers their single biggest competitive advantage and make price irrelevant.
What's your favorite price irrelevant client?
Wow, that's a good one. So in the US, probably Starbucks.
Okay.
Because they took something in 1977 that 25 cents. UK had this long before the US did, but yeah, in 1977 there was only two ways you can get your cup of coffee: with or without cream, with or without sugar, right? For 25 cents. So Starbucks, turned that on its head. But all these fantastic brands. Apple, Disney, that can charge so much more than their competitors because they disrupted the industry. And one of my favorite quotes by Steve Jobs is, "Don't ask the customers what they want, give them what they can't live without." So if you think about Airbnb and Starbucks and all the revolutionary companies, their industries didn't look anything like that back in the day.
And are they all clients of yours?
Not all of them. Some of them, but not all of them. Starbucks is. The Ritz-Carlton has been in the past. Celebrity Cruise, companies like that.
Fab. And you're an author of a number of books, 6 books, I think.
Yeah, the 6th one just came out a couple weeks ago, beginning of June.
What's that?
The Employee Experience Revolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so the one before that, what was that? The Customer Experience Revolution?
Yes. Yeah. I'm not too creative with my title.
Stick with a theme. A theme.
Right.
So what's missing? What's missing for the employees? What's the genesis of this new book?
Well, listen, the pandemic, at least in the U.S., had an awakening for leaders. We had seen and still are kind of enjoying the longest run of a strong economy since the end of 2009 here. And when things are good, right, I think leaders take their eyes off the ball and creating a strong culture. And even when things are good, customer service goes down. And so there's always a silver lining. And I think a silver lining with the Great Resignation, the quiet quitting, the disruption that it woke leaders up to realize that they got to create something more than just a job. And I also think it's our job as leaders to create extraordinary lives and through work. And so often people say, we're not what we do. But that's hard to separate, right? Dominic, if I met you out at an event, out for dinner with couples, within the first 3 minutes, it's going to get to, what do you do? What do I do? And we should be proud of what we do. Our employees should be proud of what we do, and I think we need to give more meaning and purpose to that.
I use one of the team here as an example of that. Jill cleans the office space, because I'm often talking to clients about A players, attracting and retaining A players. And then somebody says, "Oh yeah, but if we have all these A players, will they want to be promoted? And we can only have one CEO." And so I say, look, let's talk about Jill. Right? And often she's, you can see her in the background. And if you talk to Jill will tell you she's a cleaner, right? And she loves cleaning. She would bore you to death with cleaning. She brings her own stuff. She brings her own Hoover. She brings all her own sprays and cloths because she's a professional. And she loves it. She's an A player, right? Would hate to lose her, would rehire her in an instant, would recommend her to friends and family. And she would have no hesitation if you met her at a dinner party saying, "I'm a cleaner." None whatsoever. Totally agree with you. Absolutely. I think people who say, I'm not at home and at work, I'm different. I think those types of people don't like They don't like their jobs.
No, I mean, most of the world doesn't. And so much of our lives are at work, right? And so, I think we need to help employees make like what they do. And I don't think it's as hard as people think. And in one of my chapters is Power of Purpose. And I love this statistic. I tease my employees. I've started 3 companies, so about 150 employees. But it said 89% of people who retired at 55 versus 65, 89% died 10 years sooner than the ones that retired at 65. So, couple things there. One, I advertise that to my employees that if you retire, you're going to die. So, but the second thing is it just shows the power of work that matters to us. In our lives. And so it should be our responsibility to help our employees have meaning and purpose.
I was with Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach in London a couple of weeks ago. He's just turned 80, right?
Wow.
And so I contrast him with other 80-year-olds I met the following week. And
he probably has the energy of a 35, 40-year-old, I bet.
Well, he said he'd been having stem cell treatment on his knees and he was hoping to start running again. Right. Whereas, you meet the other 80-year-olds and they're like, oh, I haven't run for a long time. And they have no plan to run again. Right. So it's that.
Right.
I was talking to Joel Walden, the speaking coach. And this year he turns 83. He said, Dom, don't retire because you will end up with nothing to talk about. He said, I can't speak to the people I used to know who are retired. It's like Bruce Springsteen glory days. Like every conversation's about the past. It's not about the future.
Right. Dom, I don't know. Did you guys have in your part of the world, millennials and Gen Zs, they canceled the word hustle culture.
I haven't come across hustling being canceled.
Yeah, that's taboo today.
Okay.
And, so I talk about this in my book is honestly, that pissed me off at first, right? I'm like, what do you mean? How do you cancel the word hustle? I know, Dom, from a little bit of speaking to you, that's what separated you. And that's what got me, I wasn't the smartest, sharpest, highest degree. And it's everything I've ever taught my employees. It's everything I taught my 3 boys, right? Is about out hustling, out working, so when I heard this, I really was annoyed, but I didn't want to be the old guy, get off my lawn mentality. So I did some research. I did a lot of research. And here's what I found, that these millennials and Gen Zs had a front row seat of seeing their parents work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And a large percentage of them, it never paid off financially, right? They never got promoted. They never, whatever. They worked well past retirement years, maybe till the day they died. Okay. And so they don't want to repeat that. And then for the percentage that it did pay off financially, right? That came at a cost. And usually that cost is relationships at home, right? With your families, with, your significant other. And so when I saw it from their side, that they don't want to, live to work. They don't want to be obsessed with this hustle culture. It didn't change my mind about, my feeling towards hustle and the advantages it gives, but who's to say we're right and they're wrong? So we just have to adapt a little bit. They want more meaning than just, the 24-hour.
Here's the thing. I think we're talking about averages.
Yeah.
And I think the companies that you work with, the companies I work with, the averages are less important because there's a study from McKinsey that looks at drug development in pharma. So I think it takes $2 billion to generate a new molecule. And what they did is they said, okay, well, you patent the molecule, you get 8 years until it comes off patent. Best in the world, how quickly do they get it to market? And what's the average? The top 1% get it to market 10 times faster than the average, which is 500 days, which is a big chunk of 8 years. And so I think in that top 1%, if you're a millennial or a Gen Z and you think, I don't want to hustle, that's fine. You won't be working in one of those top 10%, 1% of the
100%.
companies.
Yeah.
You'll never come across them. I'll never come across them. That's great for them. And so I just think quite often these things are interesting. And certainly when I talk to clients who've got younger employees, they just, they say it's true. They don't seem to want to come to work and work. But I'm sure that with the right level of purpose and the right level of leadership, right? So people used to say to me, "Oh, millennials want purpose and older people don't want purpose." Well, that was not my experience. My experience is if we were running a company that had great purpose, we could attract. It didn't matter how old people were. We could attract people of all ages who were motivated by our purpose. If it was strong enough, because we only need a tiny sliver of employees and a tiny sliver of customers.
I believe the currency for all generations, the quote goes, the currency for millennials and Gen Z is purpose. But currency for everyone. I mean, everyone wants to be part of something bigger. And that's why those exceptional brands, they've created something bigger that, the employees feel like they're changing something significant in their clients, customers, guests, tenants' lives.
If we only want to employ hustlers, then, because A players, right? I think I want to employ people who have. I was talking to Brad Smart, who wrote Top Grading, and if you break down all of their stuff into one word, he said it's people who are resourceful, right? Because resourceful people, even if you're a poor briefer of the team like I am, I'll give some vague notion of what I might want in the future. Resourceful people just go and come back and they go, I know it wasn't what you said, but this is what you got. And it's like, oh, that's much better than what I said. That's great. And they don't stop halfway through when it gets hard. So how in your book, you talk about recruitment and not being able to game recruitment. So how do people do it better?
Yeah. So like a typical interview, I know you're going to ask me something to the effect that, John, what are 2 drawbacks about you, right? And I'm going to pause and think, and then I'm going to say, I'm a perfectionist and a workaholic, right? Bam, I nailed that. So the companies we've studied, research, work with, we find that they do things that make the candidate not realize what they're being judged on. For example, first interview is with a group of people. Instead of, and there's so many benefits, instead of, let's say you need a customer service rep in your call center, a receptionist, whatever, a techntechnician. Instead of wasting 6 hours with 6 candidates, interviewing them all independent, bring them all in. And, and the funny thing is, one may not show. So thank God you didn't, lose that hour of blocking yourself up. So now you got 5 or 6 people sitting there, and the interview process is like, basically, here, let me tell you about the job, non-negotiables. But then you ask questions. Hey, tell me about a time when you went, and the question is really not what they're looking for, but the candidates think that they're being judged on who has the best answer. So Dominic and everyone else here, tell me about a time when you went above and beyond for a client. Okay. So what they're really being judged on is what they're doing when someone else is talking, right? Am I looking at my Apple Watch? Am I totally zoned out? Am I just trying to think, how I can one up your answer and crush it? Or am I looking at you while you're talking as a fellow candidate, smiling, and you say something funny, I laugh? That's what I'm looking for. So there's a lot of like really good things like that. Our interview questions, again, they're we take them down rabbit holes. I think, Detective Columbo, right? He was great at disarming the person. And so if I'm ever involved, I say, Dominic, tell me about, hey, before we get started here, I see that you went to university. What was that like? And, were you in any activities? What was that like? And a lot of times they don't think the interview started. Well, the interview's always started. And so we have certain questions that help us for a customer service standpoint, judge if you genuinely like people. If you have empathy, And so there's all these kind of questions because, a lot of those things is hard to train. My favorite ungameable, Charles Schwab, the CEO of Charles Schwab, Walter Benninger, when it's a C-level hire and he's involved, okay? And I don't know if this is just internal or external candidates, but what he does is he has you meet him at his diner, his favorite diner. Okay, you're going to meet him at breakfast. And what you don't know, the candidate interviewing for that executive position, is he's already arranged with his diner, anything you order gets screwed up. And it's called the wrong order test. And how do you handle yourself? You order scrambled eggs, you're getting, French toast. You want ketchup, you're getting Tabasco sauce. And how do you conduct yourself in a pressure situation? How do you treat the server? Right. Yeah. So it's just, it's just clever things just to make it ungameable. But they're also about the recruitment experience. There's, what's different today. There's two objectives we want to accomplish in recruiting. One, I want to make sure you're right fit for the company, right? And eliminate, not just say, oh my God, Dominic, we hug and kiss each other and sing Kumbaya and we make tons of money and we get promoted all the time. And I don't want to do that. I want to almost scare you and say, Dominic, it's a hard job. Like, it's demanding. It could, some days you can go home and you feel it. So I want to make sure it's right fit for you and us. But the other thing is, today is different than it was 15, 20 years ago. 15, 20 years ago, if I heard you were hiring, if my friend worked for you, I'd apply and hope I got the job, hope I got interviewed. Today, in most markets, it's an employee market, right? And they're going to interview at 5, 6 different places, 5, 6 different industries and see who gives them the best deal, right? Whatever that is to them. $1 an hour more flexible schedule, work from home, evenings and weekends off. Okay. So if I know you're going or have just come from another interview and after this interview, you're going to another company interview, I want our recruitment experience to blow, all them away where you don't even want to go on those other interviews. You're actually now worried that you're not going to get this job. So a lot of things we build into a recruitment experience to make you that it'll just pale in comparison to any place else you go. We'll know something about you. We'll reserve a parking spot outside for you. We also want to teach you that, Dom, this is not a temporary transitional job. I know this is a receptionist. I know there's a customer service rep, an entry level technician job, but did you see Jim over there? Jim is a partner. He started doing what you were doing 15 years ago. And look at him today. And this doesn't have to be a transitional job until you get a better offer.
It's interesting. One of our clients, Smart Sourcing's out in the Philippines. And the quality of their people is really the quality of their product. And so they're trying to attract the best people from their competitors. Mm-hmm. And that whole experience, they sort of run workshops where they get people to come, and it's an employee experience event to attract better people. And one of the things that what people want is they've joined some sort of outsourcing organization because they wanted a job out of university and they've got one. Now what they want is they want a career. And so it's Smart Sourcing's academy and career development. And two most senior people, other than the founder, both started on the shop floor as associates. And so it's exactly that. It's like, look, you could go from top to bottom or bottom to top in this organization. These people have already done that.
Yeah, and we have to tell those stories. We have to tell those stories. Yeah.
Because for them, they don't want any churn. Where they've trained somebody to do a job, they want those people to stay. They've won HR Asia of best place to work in the Philippines. So, they take that culture and stickiness very, 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 very seriously.
Now, on the flip side, we do so something we talk about in the chapter of creating, keeping your employees, long term. We say it's like building a moat around your rock stars, right? A moat with sharks in it that the competitors can't offer them a sweeter deal, right? And they're not out looking. But one of the things that we talk about,
I was gonna say something, and then as I started to speak, I realized that it probably doesn't work in the US. One of the things I've done in the past is allowed staff to buy more holiday. And so if standard holiday in the UK is, 28 days or 21 days plus bank holidays or whatever it is, then, if you get people, so 4 weeks, if you get people on and they've got 6 or 7 or 8 weeks holiday and they take it all, which they do in the UK versus in the US, then they don't leave because they can't get another job. So assuming you want to keep them, they can't leave.
Right.
So what else? What other sharks can we put in the moat? Sharks in the moat sounds a bit negative, though.
No, right. Well, it's for the It's for the people.
Stop the competitors getting in. Anti-poaching. Yeah, what are their anti-poaching?
Right, and they're anti-poaching sharks. But what it's for is, so in my last book, when we talk about getting to know someone and building a relationship, is I have to learn your Ford, okay, and FORD. And if I can learn 2 or more things of your Ford in a 3-minute, 30-minute conversation, I not only built a relationship, I now own the relationship, because to you, your Ford is what you geek out about. F, family, right? Are you married? Do you have kids? How old are your kids? What activities? Do your kids play soccer? Do they play rugby? Whatever they O, occupation, right? What do you do? How long you been doing it? Do you like it? And yada yada. R stands for recreation, right? What Dom, you do with your evenings, weekends, vacations, you're probably very passionate about. You might be a triathlete, right? You may play, soccer. You may donate time to charity. And then the D stands for dreams, right? And we have that. I have that here. It's on all our things. We collect that on our clients. And, now, I can send you an article based on, hey, Dom, I know you're running your first marathon. Here's a great article on training, whatever that may mean. Now, the same thing goes for leaders. Better know their employees, Ford, right? But here's the trick. The O, occupation, well, he works for me, right? Well, no, that's not what it is. The O, when we do leadership classes, we'll surprise the leaders and we'll hand them all their list of direct reports. So maybe you'll get a list of 10 people. And then we'll say, Dom, fill out Ford on your direct employees. Well, number one, and I've been guilty of this 2 years ago, is, Lindsay, who is my executive assistant. I know she has 2 kids. I think one's a boy, one's a girl. Yeah. Shame on me, right? Shame on me. So you have to fill out Ford. But here's the key about the O, that's kind of the opposite of what we were just talking about. I know Lindsay works for me. Okay. So I can't say, oh, she works for, the DiJulius group. I have to know what Lindsay wants to be doing 5 years from now professionally. Right. And help her get there. Now, sometimes it's to be promoted and, that job, that within your company. Great. Sometimes it's she doesn't want to be here. She likes it, but her real dream is to be in a completely different industry. And maybe she's going to school for it. Maybe she's, working on that. And that's okay too. And so instead of only talking about a rags to riches story, how Dom started in the warehouse and today he is VP of sales and blah, 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 which is great. I also want the other stories to go viral on how Susan started and she was working here, but her real dream was to be in media, or her real dream was to be in this. And hey, I have some contacts and I helped her get there. And those stories are just as important, that, we're just not looking to trade, hours for dollars. And, if you can't benefit me long-term, I don't want you around here.
Totally. And I also think it means that you have an adult conversation. God, what's the book called? The book's called Advantage, and they talk about tour of duty. And so it's like, you're going to do a tour of duty here. So John, welcome to Monkhouse and Company, right? You're doing a tour of duty here. Don't know how long that's going to be. Maybe it's 5 years. Like 5 years from now, where do you want to be? Right. And so you start, that have that sort of conversation. One of our Carlos one of our coaches is now working for our client in the Philippines, and Rene used to run marketing, is now a driving instructor. And so, we worked with them to make those two things happen. You're absolutely right. And so now when, I think
they
that's
become brand evangelists for you.
Totally. Well, it's just, I think if you've got a business, it's interesting because it's sort of the unintended consequences of becoming a coach. Because I started doing this about 10 years ago, and because my Allegra, who's now 10, had just been born, and I just exited Pier 1. And I didn't think I would enjoy
Allegra
coaching.
is a boy or girl?
Girl. She's a girl. So I've got Allegra, who's 10, Araminta, Minty, who's 8, and I got Harry and Becky, who are 27 and 25.
Araminta meant to
Araminta,
boy or girl?
Yeah, girl.
Boy or
so,
girl.
Yeah.
2 girls, and then two older?
2 older, boy and a girl. Yeah.
Okay, good. So 3 girls.
3 girls, yeah.
Nice.
So if I look back at like Rackspace and Pier 1 and the businesses I was at, and the financial results we had were great and the business growth was great. And so they're the sort of scores that if somebody says, have you been successful? They're the sort of scores that I would typically give people because they sort of mean something to somebody. But actually the real joy and when I meet people again who I've worked with, the joy is like, where were they when I hired them and where have they gone? And so, somebody like Jason Vigas, who's now at Nastar, one of our clients, we started Pier 1 in the UK, and he's got a job and he turns up and we don't have an office, we don't have a business, we don't have anything. And I hired him and he quit his job. And I'm thinking, God, I now need to make this work because he's given up everything to come and, work in this thing that we've just made up. And then, he got promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted. And so, being able to look at people and go, when I interview them and go, you've got great potential. You have much more potential than you know. And how can I help you get somewhere that you don't even know you could get there?
Right.
And I get the same joy out of that with coaching. I'm working with a client and go, I could really help you. Right. So like, I can see you describing the challenge you've got. And it's like, I can see things you can't see because I've already been on this journey before myself, or I've worked with other people. You must get the same when you're looking with a client and you're talking to them about customer service. You can see the potential that and have confidence in it, being able to deliver that for them.
Yeah. And I love what you're talking about because I think there's no greater honor as a leader is to be the fundamental reason why someone that worked for you accomplished more than they ever thought. Right, because of the encouragement, the faith, the belief that you had in them before them. And I don't know if you do this, but I have a word of the year, right, that I focus on, right? One word, and I'll advertise it to me, and one of my words years ago, it's one of my favorite words of all the words I've had, was encourage, right? Encourage. And I stumbled across that. I mean, I've always known the word, and it's, encourage is a great word. But the Greek translation for encourage is to make strong. So I started thinking about that. And then I look at the word encourage. And I kind of separate it. Encourage. And then I reversed it. Courage in. And my job as anyone in your life, friend, leader, parent, whatever that may be, is to put so much courage inside of you that you go on to do things you never thought possible, right? To my boys, to my 3 sons, right? To your 3 girls and son. So I encourage. And it's kind of like what you're talking about is to be a key reason why people can, do things that they just couldn't, ever fathom before meeting you.
It's fab. What are some of the things that your kids did then as a result of that word of the year?
It's something that I got growing up. I struggled. My mom raised 6 kids all on her own, and I was not a good student. I was requested to repeat every grade from 1st through 8th, 1st through 12th. Didn't get into high school, which my older brothers attended, graduated dead last. flunked out of college. Just had a very troubling, got in some trouble. Not anything serious, but I was always in trouble and with at school and sent to the principal's office, all that. But my mom gave me this gift that was so powerful. Every day she'd say these 4 words to me and about me. And a lot of people didn't think she was tough enough on me. They thought she was enabling me. But she'd say, and you've heard these words, you've given these words, is, I believe in you. You're going to make it. No matter what my report card showed, no matter what the teachers would say, no matter what, the principals would say, is she'd say, I believe in you. And so that was something that, got me through a lot of areas of doubt and lack of confidence. And so that's something I've tried to give my boys and say that to them in not only words, but in demonstration. So, my oldest son, he was a really good wrestler. And, but he struggled at first. And then, he went on and he became a national champ in college. And, so it's just that. It's just, I try to think of ways of how I can believe in people. So, they have unrealistic confidence in them. And as you know, that unrealistic confidence ends up, coming to be, realistic more times than not.
What was at the root of your academic performance or lack thereof? Is that ADHD, dyslexia?
I still am. Yeah. ADD, ADHD. I was all over the board. I didn't have any structure at home because when my dad left when I was 6, it was like losing 2 parents, right? Because my mom had to go to work.
Yeah.
She had 6 kids, young kids. So now we don't have any parents at home. I'm not doing homework. I'm not, I don't have to do homework. I got no one, and so they couldn't control my energy. Then finally, I was able to channel that energy as I got older and matured and made it more competitive. And so I eventually went back to college and I graduated, but it took me 7 years, but I don't know, I matured later in life.
Is that why the hustle thing, is that why we were talking about it earlier? Because you think you wouldn't be where you are if you hadn't hustled.
Yeah, I had to. I mean, you'll find people much smarter, better genetics, inherent wealth, but you won't find too many people that have the passion and the determination I have and the resilience. I mean, I fail all the time, but it's just, it's just part of learning. Right. And so failing doesn't deter me. It kind of increases my appetite.
What are some of your favorite, or maybe least favorite or most impactful failures then?
The first time that I opened a business 31 years ago with my wife, we had no idea what we were doing. It was a hair salon. And we still own them today, right? We still own them, and they've been rated top 20 salons in the U.S. and all that. But back then, we had no idea what we were doing, and we hired a bunch of people. 3. It was only a 4-chair salon at the time, and we hired 3 hairdressers that had large followings and great hairdressers. And our business plan, we literally have them today. They're still framed. Now, this is in the late 80s, early 90s. Our business plan was written on cocktail napkins when me and my wife would go out and we'd say, hey, if we ever open a salon, because she was a really good hairdresser. So if we ever open a salon, let's treat customers really, really well. We'd write them down. Let's treat employees really, really well. And it was all these things that in an unsophisticated way, no one was doing. And but when we hired these 3 other hairdressers with big clientele, they wanted nothing to do with these. You don't tell me how to treat. I don't have to do that. I'm a great hairdresser. So within 4 weeks, they quit, and I thought we were going to go out of business. And so that was our first lesson: is don't compromise your culture for sales. Right? Anytime you compromise culture for sales, you lose sales in the long run. So we started doing it different. We started hiring people out of beauty school, training them our way, which at first took us longer, but then we blew everyone away because we developed them. We didn't recruit them.
It's funny, isn't it? That whole, I've often hired into customer service roles. or even sales roles, built academies for both and hired people who don't have the skills, but the attitude, and I've hired people who've worked in retail or worked in hospitality.
Yeah.
Because, you could have worked in the warehouse if you didn't like people. You probably would have got the same pay. So you've chosen to work front of house because somehow working with people gives you some energy.
Yes.
So I know that about you, even if you don't know that about yourself. But hiring from competitors can be really tricky because it brings
do you have
all
coaches that work under you.
I've got a coach who works with me. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess that you groom them, and versus if you recruited someone, the best coach out there other than you, and you recruited them, they're not going to follow your ways. They're going to look at you and say, no, I don't need to do that. I've been doing this 15, 20 years and I'm pretty successful on my own, which then, now if I'm your client and you hand me off and they do it completely different, they don't respond like Dom responds. They don't, do things like that versus you bring someone that's a little green with the right attitude and you tell them this is the way Monkhouse does it. This is the Monkhouse signature experience. I'm going to be like, okay, I trust you. And now you're replicating, Dom.
The best example is at Pier 1. We hired a couple of guys who'd been in the data center industry for a long time. And we hired a third guy who I met yacht racing. Was racing with this South African guy. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to get out of South Africa and I want to get a job in IT. And I said, okay, what do you do now? He said, I'm a sailmaker. I say, great. Raced with him for a few days at Cows. And then we had a vacancy. So I pinged him a note and I said, hey, look, we've got a vacancy in the data center. I know you don't know anything about IT. So it's a great entry level job into the business. So he came over from South Africa and started working with us. Then we had some really heavy snow, which in the UK is probably about 6 inches. Anyway, the two guys who'd been in the industry forever called in and said, oh, we can't get our cars off the drive. We won't be at work today. Nick didn't have a car, so he walked 6 miles in the snow to the data center.
And he probably doesn't have the shoes for snow.
Totally. And not coming from South Africa. And then he slept in the data center for a week and ran it on his own. Right. And it's just, and you just go, that, that's the right attitude. And the other two guys, we just got rid of them because they just.
Yeah. I like to say hire for the heart, train for the part. Right. I can teach someone what the technical side of what we do, but I can't teach, if you don't have, a passion and enthusiasm and energy. I'm all about energy.
Your entire history goes back to this hair salon then.
Yeah.
Right? Why did you and your wife, why was the customer experience thing important to you? I mean, maybe you have no idea at all, but it just was.
No, I do. So everything I've done, and probably maybe like you, it was an accident. I was, when I was in college, I wanted to own my own business, and, my wife was this great hairdresser, but I didn't want to be in the salon business, but opened it for her, thinking that if it took off, I could start my sporting goods store. That's what I thought I was going to, this is in the 80s, right? I'm going to open a sporting goods store. But the reason why salon was, I saw the opportunity is everyone that worked with her, the salon industry back in the late 80s, at least here, horrible.
Well, in the UK in the late 80s, my mother had a hairdressing salon. So
okay, so
my grandmother had 5.
Okay.
So and my auntie's a hairdresser. My uncle used to run the shops, right?
So
I used to spend my entire evenings and sometimes weekends in the back of a salon,
sweeping hair and
hair and trying to stay out of trouble.
Yeah. So that was it. So in the late 80s, and at least in the US and in our area, customer service was horrible. They didn't take care of their employees. A lot of employees, hairdressers who like doing hair would have to quit the industry to go get real jobs because they didn't get vacations, they didn't get training, they didn't get hospitalization, they didn't get benefits. So that was our niche is all right, let's open a hair salon that We had the 3 no's when we opened: no customers, no employees, no money. And in every direction, like your area, you could throw a rock in any direction, hit 5 competitors, right?
Yeah.
So we could not build a salon. We didn't have the money. We could not market. We could not advertise. But what no one had was good customer and employee experience. So we did that. And we just exploded. It exploded. And so now I'm going to, that's all I'm going to do in the early 90s for the rest of my life was that. So I thought. And we started opening more and more salons. But because of the noise our salons were making locally in Ohio and nationally, people started asking me to speak because it was unconventional. We were charging 3 times what anyone else was, and we were the busiest. And that's where Making Price Irrelevant came. So I would speak thinking it was more of a marketing opportunity for my salons, never thinking that I would do anything with it. And every time I spoke, 2 or 3 people would hire me. And so up until 2003, I was a salon owner that spoke a little bit. And then my first book came out in 2003 and haven't been in the salon industry ever since. Still own them, but have nothing to do with the day-to-day. But as you know, because of your background, it is the best, laboratory, right? I mean, everything, in a salon parallels to any other business.
I think that whole word of mouth, word of mouth marketing, great customer experience, stickiness. You can't build a salon without those. Right. Without those things. It's just.
But see, I think it's the same in our business, in every business. And you think about 3 types of leads, and even in our business of coaching and consulting, there's 3 types of leads. There's cold, where you call me, right? And, you're like, hey, do you need a coach? Do you need a consultant? Do you need, a phone, whatever it is. Probably not, but your price better be unbelievable. You better be giving it away because I didn't even know I needed it. And you're calling me and interrupting me. So cold is one. The second one is warm. And what I think of warm is that you Googled me or I Googled you, SEO, search engine. I need a business coach, a business consultant, a customer experience consultant, right? Well, that's warm, but I also got a half a dozen other businesses that I'm reaching out to. So again, your interest in me is probably predicated on how good our price is compared to the other people, right? Now, the third level is the hot lead. And the hot lead is one of 2 things. I've either worked with you before, love you, want to, re-engage, or Joe, who's worked with you, told me I have to use you. You're perfect for me. Now, I'm not calling anyone else. Price sensitivity, I don't care. I'm not shopping you to the lowest bidder. So, that's where we want. And so that's something that one of the biggest KPIs that we get our customers to track is earned growth, earned sales versus bought.
Winning on purpose, Fred Reichelt.
That's
in that book. He says that's the.
He introduced the term. I tweaked it a little bit, but yeah, it's looking all right. Last month, last quarter, last year, whatever you want to say, you did $1 million. Great. Of that, what was repeat and referrals? That's your earned versus what was bought. That's advertised. Yeah. Now, if we can get that repeat and if we can get the earned sales up, that's all profit. Because again, if I'm an earned sale, I'm not price sensitive. I'm not shopping to the lowest bidder. The sales cycle so much smaller versus all the hoops I'm putting you through saying, all right, well, I'm looking at 3 other companies and they said they could do this, this, and this for 10% less. And, screw that.
Totally. I was just laughing because I remember when I turned up at Pier 1, our pitch was like Rackspace, but 30% off. And it's like, guys, we've got to be like Rackspace, but $1 more expensive.
Right.
Right. Because 30% off, people go, why are you worse? And if we're $1 more expensive, they'll say, tell me why you're better. Right. And it's just a different conversation.
So Dom, you'll love this. So our whole thing is making price irrelevant. Right. And making price irrelevant doesn't mean we can charge 200% more than anybody else and not lose existing or potential customers. This is my definition of making price irrelevant. Based on the experience, our brand consistently gives, and consistently gives means it's not dependent on just getting me. It's that, you get Jill, you get Susan, you get whoever you come in contact with. Based on the experience our brand consistently delivers, our clients have no idea what our competition charges because they're not out price checking them, right? Yeah. And we're all price sensitive. I've been the idiot that's driven 3 extra miles to save 50 cents on something, not realizing I just lost in that exchange. But I also personally and professionally have just a few vendors, businesses I do business with that have made me so loyal. But peace of mind, trust, brilliant comeback when they've dropped the ball. Everyone drops the ball, but they've made it right that I'm more loyal to, that I have no idea how they stack to their competitors because I'm not out saying, well, hold on, Dom, you charge what per hour? I'm not checking because a lot of times the cheaper we go, the more it costs us, right?
Yeah. Fantastic. John, you've got Employee Experience Revolution. That's your new book.
Yes.
Number 6. What, other than reading any of your fabulous books, what else might people pick up and read along the way?
I love The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And the compound effect is kind of a slight edge. You ever heard of it? You'll like this. Is whether and this applies to eating, working out, sales, customer, it applies to everything in the world, okay? And the whole concept of the compound effect is whether you do something today or you don't, really doesn't matter today. All right? And so let's take, if I eat a banana or a salad for lunch, or I eat 6 donuts, whether I do that one or the other today or I don't, really doesn't matter. You're not going to see me later and say, whoa, John, what would you do? The scale's not going to look that much different later today, right? But if you make the right choices and eat the salad and the fruit and and I make the bad choices, in a week, it's not even going to look that much different. But in 6 months, we're going to look drastically different, right? Drastically. Same thing goes for if you call that customer back today within, a few hours, or you wait a day or two, or if you train your new employees on being world-class at customer service, or you don't, your sales aren't going to look any different this week, this month. But in 6 months, 8 months, a year, it's going to be a freight train going one way or the other. You're going to be scratching your head saying, why aren't we retaining our clients? Or why is our earned growth rate going through the roof with referrals and repeat customers? So I love the compound effect. It just puts everything in perspective of it's the small choices and habits we create in business and in life.
You got another one?
Yeah. I got a lot of favorites. I love the book you just grabbed, Winning on Purpose. Love that book. Fred, I've had Fred on my podcast. Brilliant guy. Let me think of, some other ones.
I think Fred, I think the story behind his book's great because he said he got diagnosed with cancer. Yes. They told him it was terminal. So he wanted to write down everything he knew about business for his grandkids who were too young to read and he hadn't been able to pass it on to. And then did that and then survived, which is very good.
Yes.
To say.
Anything written by Howard Schultz, who's the former CEO, I've read his 3 books. I'm sorry. No.
Starbucks, not Ritz-Carlton.
That's a good book too. But Howard Schultz from Starbucks.
Yes.
He 3 books. He's written Onward. Pour Your Heart Into It. Yeah, I forget the third one, but From the Ground Up. I've read each of those multiple times. I love his story. He came from projects of Brooklyn, New York. Poor, and I just love his story and his overcoming, adversity and challenges, and how he drove Starbucks. And I had the pleasure of working with him and his company, so that meant a lot to me.
Fab. That's brilliant. I definitely haven't.
I got to
read.
send you my books to get you on your shelf behind you. I will do that.
Well, the ones behind me are where we've had a guest on, so they'll the team normally buy them for me to put on the behind if I haven't if we don't already have them, because I normally consume stuff on Audible.
Yeah,
but
so do I. I'm all Audible and podcast.
I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you. What's your genius?
Positivity. I could take anything and turn it into if life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I just literally have had a lot of loss in my life, and I just find a way to make it positive and channel it and be happy that I had the time versus woe is me and whatever that is.
What drives you every day?
I have my own personal mission. It's called living an extraordinary life, so countless others do. And it's not to live an extraordinary life so I have a better life, so I have bigger houses, bigger bank accounts, bigger cars. It's the ripple effect that it's a responsibility, not an option, a responsibility to live my best life because of the impact that's going to have on my 3 boys, on my 150 employees, on the hundreds of clients that we have. And so, that I make it more of a burden of that's why I eat healthy. That's why I work out every day. That's why I surround myself with people that inspire me. That's why I read those books, because if I'm clicking on all cylinders, whoever our greats are, Richard Branson, Howard Schultz, Walt Disney, whoever they are, what if they would have said, screw it? How different so many lives would be. And to a small crowd, I am Walt Disney, right? To my kids, to my employees. And I want them to have extraordinary lives as a result of me living an extraordinary life.
Fab. I think that's inspirational. Thank you. We share the same thinking about that. What unpopular opinion do you hold?
Stop blaming your parents. Stop blaming your circumstances as a child. And it goes back to my first one, positivity. Okay, you were dealt that. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. I believe I'm a great dad because my father wasn't. If my father was the father he should have been, I wouldn't be the father I am. Right. So let's stop saying you don't understand. The reason I'm like this is because of my dad or my mom or my teacher or coach would have been better to me. I wouldn't act like this. Okay, don't. All right. It's unfortunate, but use it as a power, not as a weakness.
Yeah, indeed. What's the most recent thing you've learned, or the most recent skill you've acquired?
Just looking at things as an opportunity instead of the challenge that they are. So, just that, if I'm going through tough times, find the opportunity. There's a reason why that I'm going to come out better on the other side as a result. Even though I can't see it now, even though I want to crawl in a hole and say, woe is me. Why does this have to happen to me? Resist that and focus on what is the opportunity here that's going to be the best thing as a result of going through this, trouble.
What's the worst business advice you've ever received?
You gotta, if you want it done right, you gotta do it yourself. I think
excellent.
I think that's right the first time, because you won't know how to do it because you've never done it. And I've done it 150 times, but if I can get you to do it, now that frees me up to do what I should be doing, not what I shouldn't be doing. So, yeah.
I was speaking to a client this morning, but it's true. Often I speak to CEOs or, owners of businesses, and they're just broken often when they get to me, and they're spending all their time doing stuff that they don't enjoy doing.
Right.
And because they've got successful, and it's like, well, stop doing it. And they're like, what do you mean? I just said, just stop doing it. And they're like, oh, can I? I went, yeah, of course you can. Like, oh, okay. It's just liberating. Last question for you. What's the biggest myth in business?
Treat customers the way you want to be treated. Treat other people. Treat employees the way you want to be treated. I need to find out what works for you. My background, especially when I first got in, I didn't know what world-class customer service looked like. I had never been to a 5-star resort. I've never flown first class. I didn't get a Mercedes-Benz. So I didn't know what world-class looked like. I was going to McDonald's. I was going to, the Red Roof Inn, a motel, whatever that is. So you wouldn't wanted me to treat you like I wanted to be treated. And so learning and understanding that, what do you want? What is it that you like to, be treated and getting that and doing that.
Fab. Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you today. Thank you indeed for coming on.
My pleasure, Dominic.